you know best what's good for you, what's bad for you in regards to the kind of clients you serve. And because you're in private practice, you can decide if you're going to make an exception.
Behavioral Health Integrations podcast strives to inspire the next generation of mental health and addiction specialists. Our aim is to continue to raise awareness and encourage collaboration in the mental health and addiction industry so that it will continue to thrive. There are numerous approaches to treating mental health and substance abuse issues. On this show, we take pleasure in showcasing the diversity of these approaches used to improve the lives of others. So without further ado, your host, Jacob Menig.
Amity, thank you so much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
I'm so glad to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So where are you calling out of again?
I'm from Denver, Colorado.
Born and raised?
No. Actually, I'm a transplant, almost 30 years. I'm from the East Coast of Long Island, New York originally.
So did you live then?
I had you know what? When I get going and I start getting feisty, the Long Islander in me comes out. So don't tempt me.
I won't stop. And again, one thing that always interested me in you, and I know we're going to get into a lot of great stuff, is obviously you being a mental health professional. So in general, I always ask you kind of what motivates you to do that. But you're very interesting because you have another element to you, and that's business, entrepreneurship. Love to hear about that first, because that was your first love.
Entrepreneurship or
Entrepreneurship.
therapreneurship?
Yes.
Yes.
What is the basic definition? Because to a lot of us, we may not know, or we may think, oh, does it just mean own businesses? Is that what it is? Which I think there's a lot more to it, right?
That is such a great question. I think because I've always identified myself as an entrepreneur, I think of that. I can think of ways to describe it. Let me just say that an entrepreneur is somebody who is a self-made business owner, somebody who is working for themselves, somebody who has come up with an idea or is going to run with something and they're bringing it out to market. They're bringing some sort of widget or concept or product out into the marketplace themselves. They are not working for another company or another institution. That is probably the clearest definitive explanation for what an entrepreneur is. And then there's much more that's wrapped into being entrepreneurial, being an innovator, being a strategic thinker, a founder. You can think of all sorts of labels that sort of encompass this idea of being a self-starter and going out into the market and making a go of it.
So did that always fascinate you? Like, were you in college and just be like, oh, wow, I would love to be that or do something like that? Is that where it kind of started for
I
you?
think I'm wired this way. I come from a long line of hustlers and
Goes,
do-it-yourselfers. And both my parents worked for themselves. They, over the years, tried and sometimes mastered, sometimes had to pivot away from whatever venture that they were trying out. But it had always been modeled for me that if I could come up with an idea, there's a way to bring it out, there's a way to monetize it and be creative with the kind of work that you do in the world.
okay, excellent. You got to tell me though, what were, I guess, your first two or three ideas for you? Like, when did they happen? When did they occur? Because I know you got into a bunch of different things. Like, was chocolate one of them? You got into,
Yeah. So that's so fun. It's so fun to kind of talk about that.
I think that's one of them, right?
Yeah. So I guess I'll just say this, as looking around my environment growing up about an hour and a half from Manhattan, I was always sort of inspired. I was always had a creative edge to me. And I have, and still continue to do, I have journals where I write down some sort of inspiration, some sort of quirky idea, and the ideas just grow and they accumulate. And I have a fun game that I play with myself and with my husband where we say, okay, well, what are your three ideas for today? And then we'll just kind of spitball them back and forth. And it really opens up for a lot of conversation and fun possibilities. So I guess I would say that I am skewed more towards I'm an optimist,
Mhm.
and I always see openings where a lot of people who aren't sort of entrepreneurial tend to want to stick in their lane. They maybe like the tasks, the technician tasks
Mhm.
of, you go to a job, you have this sort of guaranteed structure of work. You probably see a lot of people like that. Like they like predictability. And I tend to look for the beeline. Like I want to go off road most of the time in my life and in my businesses. So there's always been that edge for me. And when I finished school, I went back and I got a first master's in conflict resolution. And I'll try to shorten this story, but I really liked working with people. I knew that I liked being intimate with them. I like to solve problems. And having this entrepreneurial mindset, I think I was always looking for solutions. I'm very solution focused oriented. But I realized that with conflict resolution, it was a great stepping stone into doing my own private business. And so I started I was in the for-profit world for about 15 years, and I started out in manufacturing and producing handbags. So I was in the fashion world. And then I ended up at the end of that lifeline. I actually finished off in my last business. I was a chocolate maker. And by the time that final business had closed, which was like 2015, I realized that my life was very externally driven. I had to produce something that people were going to buy regularly. I had to always the products that I produced were really front and center, and it was draining me. And I realized that I wanted to get back to this intimate connection with other people. So I went back and I got a second master's degree in counseling, and that's how I ended up in the mental health field.
That's beautiful. That goes into like what we're going to talk about later. So that's very
Yeah,
like that story. Uh,
good.
and I really kind of like resonate a little bit with what you said too before about how, again, going back to the mental health field, like let's say if you work at a community mental health or a treatment center, and I think
Yeah.
people just like the safety of getting paid every 2 weeks because for the most part, they're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
It's somewhat mundane. So that's why I could see like a lot of people just liking working for someone else because they don't like to venture out, like you said. Uh,
Mhm.
but there's other people who like being the boss of themselves and have really cool ideas. I'm wondering, in your experience, let's say like you're in a consultation session, right?
Mhm.
And I come to you and I start telling you why I want to be an entrepreneur. Like in the past, has there been like red flags in your head, like, oh, this person said A, B, and C, like, oh, I actually don't think you'd be a good entrepreneur. I, let's just say like, oh, I'm just in it for the money or whatever. But throughout your experience, like, what are some red flags of people who want to go that route, being an entrepreneur, but in your mind, oh, I don't think this is for you?
Oh, that's an interesting way of approach. Well, I think,
Because in a
well,
way,
let's
it could just
say
be about
this.
money, right? You could just go out.
Yeah, let me say this. There is sort of an examination. If you look across the last 80, 100 years in looking at professional work, at activities that we do to generate money, to generate an income, a lifestyle, so forth, we spend 80% of our lives doing something
Yeah.
and working towards something. And so entrepreneurship or owning your own business is not for everyone. But that's not to say that if you work in a company structure and you are reporting to a boss or you're working in a team setting, that's not to say that you can't be entrepreneurial in that construct. And I think a lot of people, at least in my experience, when I counsel people who are going through a career transition, they're looking for autonomy. They're looking for ways that they can express themselves with more freedom and agency.
Mhm.
So, an entrepreneur, typically, they look at their business as a way to express their ideas and their vision. That's truly how I came into my own. I had an inkling of an idea and I thought, that would be super cool. And I just figured out the ways to bring it to market because there's an interchange. You're bartering, you're having an exchange of energy, whether it's for money or experience. Okay. So when I think about somebody coming in and maybe contemplating doing a career transition and going from, like myself, going back to school and having an encore career, starting over in a totally different field, there are going to be questions about where did this come from? What was the impetus that drove them to this place? And there's never a right or wrong or saying that they can't, oh, maybe it's not the best idea, but you can be adaptable and flexible into discovering and inquiring into this individual's goals and reasons. And I think it comes back to the very things that we counsel on. It's understanding what drives a person to do a particular action. And for me, I would probably do a deep dive into somebody's values and first principles, et cetera, to come up with a baseline of what motivates them in life, and then taking those motivations and seeing how they would apply externally in the world.
Yeah, very well said. And again, kind of going back to, well, my personal experiences, prior to me doing my own private practice, yes, I worked in the treatment center setting and whatnot. I worked in a couple of different departments. Like my main reasons for getting out is just one, it's weird. It's not always the clients that are like that cause stress. It's like the toxic coworkers, toxic management. Yes, you get paid every 2 weeks, but it's just really just yucky. Like the work environments are just not good. And yes, it's just there is something to it about working for yourself, not having to answer to anyone. Like that is just so beneficial for a lot of people. And that's just my personal experience of like why I wanted to get into private practice. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you relate to that or
Yeah. Oh, I think that is a common reason. I think statistically, when I look at our associations, like if I look at the American Counseling Association, and when they take stock and when they take a survey of their members, which are upwards, I think, of 75,000 members at this point, I mean, it's quite a growing field. Close to 50% of them are wanting or are pursuing or in private practice. So that says something about the industry, that even though it was founded back in the 60s and 70s and it was based on a community health model, like mental health for everyone, it highly needed, no doubt about it. But this desire, right? This desire to stick a stake in the ground and make your claim about like how you want to live in the world and how you want to show up, it's usually around private industry and doing something according to your rules, not what society tells you. So the drive to be in private practice is real, and it's a strong current. So I'm not surprised, and I hear this quite often about your situation and why you left, right?
yeah. And again, it's also a risk or a challenge because again, it takes courage. You're jumping into a new role, being private practice and everything. And just and I'm sure you've heard this, but like a lot of the issues I've been having and other people have been having is obviously getting clients, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this later, just getting clients, obtaining clients, marketing, but also insurance companies not reimbursing you for your services, billing companies not doing adequate jobs and even trying to get claims. And again, maybe I'm just venting because that's a lot of stuff I'm actually personally going through right now, but I'm sure a lot of counselors are going through the same thing. And I don't know, have you heard that from like therapists in Colorado, like experiencing the same issues too with the field?
Oh gosh, it is. The system is bloated and bureaucratic, and everybody wants to have a hand in the pot. And what it ends up doing is creating a downward pressure on the end user, on the client, on the customer, however you want to label them. And everybody needs to get paid. And the system, frankly, I just feel is broken. And when you put too much regulation on something, it tends to fire backwards on you. And I don't have personally, I don't have a solution for that, but I truly believe in free enterprise, and I believe that people should be able to pay for these services, and the clinicians and our groups should be paid for what they're worth. So we can talk about that too. Yeah.
Um, um, be honest now, when you work with clients like private practice owners, does your advice or consultation sometimes involve you saying or encouraging people not to go through insurance and like just do private pay? Just
Yes,
pay. You do. Okay, great.
I do.
You do. At that point,
I advocate for that because the system is not, you're never going to get your worth from that. And and it also goes back to how you set up your business. Now, if you are a sole proprietor who wants to incorporate a sliding scale practice of some sort, if that is your where your value lies and feel like you should provide those services, there's ways, there's models to make that happen. And I'm not discouraging you from doing that, but private practice opens the doors to so many other ways of delivering quality services
Mhm.
that are unavailable to you in the traditional model.
Oh God, I'm so glad that you said that because again, I've only been in again private practice for a little bit over a year now, so I'm still learning so much. Like even though I'm a licensed mental health professional, I'm actually like asking my old supervisor for supervision even more now than I did working at a treatment center, just because so you're involved in so many different kinds of cases, ethical situations. You're throwing
Mhm.
so many things. Well, again, I call it consultation now, but it's like I'm asking her for help more than ever now that I'm going on my own. And I guess
Sure. Sure, because you're creating your own system and you're not being told there isn't a format, right? When you're in community mental health, there's a treatment plan, there is a SOP, there is a process, like you do this, this, and this. It's wonderful if everybody fits into that paradigm. But as a community mental health provider or agency, anybody who walks through your door doesn't, I mean, it's putting a square peg in a round hole. Like it's just really hard to manage and to give quality support care to the general public. And that's what I like about private practice, because you can really niche down, you can really focus in and tailor made your services to the ideal client that you have in mind. And they're looking for you. So,
I love that. And some of the issues is like sliding scale. Now, I've been at times struggling, like, and maybe this goes into your values as a therapist of like, let's say your rates are 200 a session. Okay,
yeah.
go the sliding scale route. How low do you go? Is it, should you have a set rate? Like, okay, sliding scale is 150. Or do you bargain with the client if they say, "Oh, Jake, I can't do 150." I'm like, "Oh, can you do 125?" And
Oh.
that's your experience, or do you advise
You're,
it?
in
Or
that situation, you're negotiating with yourself, really. That client sitting across from you has challenges with money,
Can I throw
has
can
challenges.
I throw a
Yeah.
scenario?
Yeah.
Working with a 12-year-old girl. Her and her mom live in a one-bedroom apartment. And to help understand this, I work through an EAP system, employee assistance program system.
Okay.
Oh, their work pays for a certain amount of sessions at, like, let's say $65 a session. But after that's done, they go through the insurance or private pay or whatever. Let's say you just develop a soft spot for that little girl, and you know her family doesn't have a lot of money and whatever. I'm not gonna lie, that that motivates me to, like, maybe bring it down to a 125. But again, that's pulling at my heartstrings a little bit, and I still want to work with her, and I'd be okay taking 125. So should I do it? You know what I mean? Or should I stick my ground and be like 150? That's it.
Ooh, well, what's your gut say? I mean, you clearly have been contemplating this, and there's nothing wrong. It's not a judgment call. You know best what's good for you and what's bad for you in regards to the kind of clients you serve. And because you're in private practice, you can decide if you're going to make an exception for that particular client and family. That's your prerogative.
Yep.
There is a balance sheet though. If you know what is required to keep your doors open and to keep you solvent, you have to weigh that out. And maybe there are flexible ways and creative ways within that practice. You could downgrade, let's say downgrade the service, so maybe it's you do a package structure.
Mm.
So they pay for upfront for like maybe $350 worth of sessions. And that could be a combination of group therapy
Mhm.
or online services only, and maybe once a month with online or in session groups. You can figure out what works best for you. And what I believe is that the market is open and flexible and willing to adapt, because at the end of the day, people are in desperate need for your services and for your expertise, but it um, has to be a fair trade, an equilibrium.
Here's my thought. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I sometimes, like, when I do sliding scales and they still say no, I feel like there's a part of me that says, oh, they don't respect your services. Then if they're not, you know, if they want you to work for damn near free, or let's just say $80, I could be wrong, but I also think I'm not wrong all the time in that, where again, you can only go so low, where it's just like, okay, they don't value you or they don't value your time. If they did, they'd put the money effort in. You know what I mean?
Oh, and I think that is the inner dilemma for every client that walks through the door, right? They're trying to find the best type of care and services that they can afford, right? But you also have to, as a clinician and a business owner, because you're wearing both hats here,
You
you
need
have to
a
determine what's right.
$500 an hour therapist, like, because that's how good you are, right?
Yes. Yes.
That actually,
But again, there's ways in which you can adapt and modify that structure. If you feel strongly about serving this 12-year-old and her family, I would definitely say, okay, for the next 2 months, or maybe for the next month, we will do a prorated rate for you, and then we will reassess it. Internally, you're like, I'm going to reassess where this is for me. And if this is just it not working out, then I either have to refer out, because that's the responsible, ethical thing to do, or you figure out a different model of service.
yeah. I know. What was I gonna say? I know one way, like, and this is actually really cool. My supervisor told me, like, a little bit how she does it, where if she looks, and let's just say the client has like an $8,000 individual deductible, that's what she goes automatically into sliding scale, because no matter what she charges, if she charges full rate, the client's never going to meet that deductible working with her. So then she's like, okay, well, I'm just going to do a sliding scale, so it's more affordable to them, because even if I charge full price, they're never going to make it. It's not going to be, it's going to be pointless.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that makes total sense. And I have chosen for my own practice and the way I do business is I sidestep all of that. I promote and I advertise to a particular type of client that is willing and able to pay for my fee. And I'm comfortable with that. And I know that the clients that I see are comfortable with that.
Yep.
So again, it comes back to ultimately what kind of business do you want to run? What is feasible? What is equitable? And then if you are designing a practice that has maybe a hybrid model of some service, and that could be between one-on-one sessions and group therapy, maybe you're incorporating, again, additional new technologies. You're doing online services. You're expanding that. You're doing particular focus groups for psychoeducational groups. So you can even out the pressure, the financial pressure, so that you still feel good about showing up to work every day and you're not resenting your clients because they are unable to pay you what you feel like your time is worth. And I think when you get to this place, and I think so many clinicians do, is that we start negotiating with ourselves and we start trading time for dollars. And that is a death wish for us.
Can I tell you one thing I'm struggling with right now? And I think it's just so fascinating how when we get into these discussions, it has so much to do with your own mental health, your own work that you still need to do on yourself. Because I'm having my concern is I'm afraid sometimes to say my full rate right off the bat, which I was also taught you tell them your full rate, and if they say that's too much, then you could start negotiating the sliding scale. But now I'm just getting this kind of fear and worry where I don't even want to say my full rate because I assume they're not going to be able to afford it. So then I'll just go right into the sliding scale mode. But it's just like for me, what part of me cannot just say, hey, my rates are 200 an hour and just sit with myself and wait for their response to say they can afford or not afford it. And then if they say no, then maybe we could discuss sliding scale.
Yes. And I would add that you have to keep continuing to reconcile your own, our own money issues. We're never taught, especially in our training, in our clinical training, right? We're we're looking to our peers and to our advisors to counsel us and to give us guidance on how to price ourselves, when the reality is that's not the paradigm that they operate in. That's not they're coming from a community mental health
Yeah.
service, and it's different in today's world. And I think that just as much, I'll just add that there's a whole other topic of discussion about setting rates and money mindset and the money complexes that come with this kind of work, right?
I,
But yeah, go ahead.
you're gonna think it's funny. So I was listening to this podcast, and this like veteran therapist is saying like the method of determining what is your private rate. And what she said was you keep thinking of a number, you go up, up, up until the amount that you start feeling yucky, like ooh. And she's like, that's the rate you charge right there. Is the moment when you start feeling yucky or whatever, that's the rate you charge.
I have heard of that exercise, and I think that is something, it's a great way to kind of check yourself, like what is your maximum amount of discomfort, right? And then add 20% to that or 10% to that. Um, I also think that there's just a pen to paper sort of exercise of looking at the hard numbers of saying, what can your practice afford? What can you afford? And you have to always weigh out. I mean, most of us have significant debt from our schooling and our training that we're carrying over. And then there's the lifestyle. How do we pay our bills? How do we pay for ourselves? And yeah, so I mean, you have it's a perfect soup of like the
Oh, yeah.
kitchen sink of everything being thrown in there that you have to tease apart and you have to look at objectively and then still self-soothe and regulate with all of those feelings that are being activated around money. Is it we on I mean, I'm sure this is something that comes up for you with for your clients, and even when you talk to your peers, it's just about this idea that somehow if we make money, we earn money based on somebody's discomfort or hardship, it feels wrong, it feels icky. And that has been this story, this narrative that we've been telling ourselves and has been passed, has been given to us. And I want to change that discussion and I want to change that talk.
I've never personally felt that way, but I can imagine like other therapists doing that or feeling that way. And it's a powerful thing because I don't know, it creates like in a way negative, powerful stereotypes.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, people even say like, "Hey, we don't do this for the money," and I get so pissed off at counselors or whatever when they say that. It's like, knock it off, stop that. You're creating a negative stereotype. You just saying that is spreading that like that stereotype around. We do deserve to get paid. Yeah, we could still help people and make a good amount of money. There's nothing wrong with that. And I just feel like when people say that, they're almost like shaming you. Like, nope, we should do this. Like, no, that's how we get burnt out. That's how private practice ownership we lose. We just shut down our private practices. It's just like, no, we need to find ways to learn how to make a living because there are so many amazing, healthy, knowledgeable professionals who want to do good in the world. And again, they end up like shutting down the private practices because of money issues. So again, that's a narrative we need to fix as a culture.
Oh, I second that wholeheartedly. And
I'll say
yeah,
that.
I also imagine it that, those clients, those potential clients that are coming through your doors are going through the very same things in their lives. So many of us are struggling to figure out what our self-worth is. Can I ask for a raise? Can I ask for a promotion? Am I worth it? And then it's always this somehow it's turned back around to an internal battle of self-worth and drive and agency, to ask for those things. And so you as the clinician are in this really interesting seat to be able to make that interaction, to discuss your rates and your fees, a therapeutic process unto itself. And it becomes this third thing that comes from that session and from that negotiation, really, to discover what may be those hidden biases and what those underlying narratives are doing to you to think that you have to renegotiate your fee
Yeah,
to help this one person. And it'll be a very interesting discussion, I promise you, once you start going there.
absolutely. So getting into your entrepreneur work with like therapists and everything,
Mhm.
would you say that the common issue that they come to you is like, I need more clients, I'm not making enough money? Is that like the grand scheme of why they come to you? And in a way, you give them a lot of different ideas how they can get more clients, improve their marketing, or I know you get into the C3 clinical
Yeah.
collective, right?
Yeah, Clinical Career Collective. Yes, that is my professional development company, specifically set up for other in-service professionals who are trying to figure out if they should open up their private practices and how they do that. Um, yes, I think all of the above, it's this constant, the like, how do I build a practice? How do I build a name for myself? Is my practice really a brand? And how do I attract clients? What directory should I put myself on? And I actually put a pause on that. I put a pause button on that because all of that marketing and sales strategy comes a little bit further down the road because you have to build the foundation first. Like in any house, you have to have a plan, you have to have a design, and you have to decide what the rooms are going to look like, how tall the walls are going to be, etc. And so I go back to the very beginning of the nuts and bolts of what business is. And that kind of brings us back to where we originally opened with what is an entrepreneur? What is a solopreneur? And then I build up from there. So educating clients, practitioners about private business ownership. What does that look like? Do you need an LLC? Before we even get into any of the marketing and the branding and how do I attract new clients and set up a website, I really start with the fundamentals of business building. So, in my 7-day bootcamp course called Do This First, I talk about these very things. I talk about the 5 elements of every business. It doesn't matter what business you're in, these are the 5 elements that need to be considered in any sort of design structure entity that you're going to be creating. And then I sort of build from there. So I start to figure out, what kind of business you like. If it's a single operation, like you're just opening your own namesake door to seeing clients, or you actually want to create a group practice, any of those things you have to evaluate and consider. And then you move on to the type of client that you want to serve. And then you develop the constructs, the processes, and the SOPs and the systems as the backbone to that business entity.
You made a really good point too, because I can imagine though, like a new therapist, whatever, they want to really grow their business, so they won't like have a niche or whatever. But they'll just take any client they can almost get their hands on because they think that will be good. But one, I feel like that almost does a disservice to you and the client because you're not really. It's not even so much your expertise, but it's like more what your passion is to helping a certain population and how you can do good for them. You ever
Mhm.
get that a lot?
Yeah, and I think it also it tends to happen when you feel desperate. When there's some scarcity in there, you suddenly made this cut. Maybe you made the cut from your current job. Maybe you were employed at a group practice or another sort of office, and then you suddenly say, "Okay, I'm done and I'm going to go start my own shop." And you find that you just want the money, you just need the money, and you want to take anybody that comes through the door that's interested. You're doing a ton of referral searches, you're doing a lot of pop-ups, and that, like, you're going and giving lectures or talking or going into different providers offices and meeting and greeting them. You're sending baskets to them. I mean, whatever you're doing to promote yourself. But it really is like a shoot from the hip design plan. And I would strongly suggest and counsel you to take a step back and come up with a true launch schedule of like how, like, in the next 6 months, I plan to be in full private practice by that particular date, but I'm going to do these things to sort of ramp up those efforts so that you feel like you're in control of your choices and not the other way around.
Yes. And FYI to people, I'm not saying like never go outside your general population that you want to work with, because I've kind of noticed too that I'm kind of working with kids from like 8 to 12. Again, I don't have a lot of clients like that, but I realized, oh, I'm actually having a couple really good connections with some of the 12-year-olds or 13-year-olds or whatever. So I guess as you grow, you might realize, oh, I actually do better than I thought with this population.
Yeah. I think you discover that along the way, especially if your client roster has been given to you. I mean, if you're coming from probably a group practice or mental health clinic or community service, you don't have a choice in the clients you see. You're assigned those clients, right? I mean, you may have your chosen specialty. I'm an adolescent therapist versus an adult therapist, right? I mean, you kind of, or you're a family systems therapist, whatever you may be. Wouldn't you agree? Isn't that how that works?
For stories where community mental health, they'll say, oh, who do you want to work with? Kids, teenagers, and all you get is adults and geriatrics.
Oh, okay, so it's the opposite, right? Like you say what you want,
Oh,
but yeah, it doesn't really matter anyway. It's just lip service. Yeah. So the key to that and making your life and your business life so much easier is really being able to do a deep dive to considering and to niching down to getting really to becoming that specialist. Because in today's world, you see that the more you're a generalist, you're really not really serving anybody. And then you get into that situation where you're negotiating with yourself about like, well, if I have an open door policy, anybody's walking in and then I'm put in a position having to say yes or no, and it's terrible. And you're doing a disservice to that client because it's really a mismatch and now they have to go out and find somebody else.
yep,
So
absolutely.
if you could tell if you are confident in your desire to serve a particular type of client population, then say that because you're not wasting anybody's time.
Can I give you a hypothetical? Like, let's say I go into your office and do consultation with you, and I tell you, hey, I want to work with veterans, first responders, firefighters, police officers. You would take that information, right? And then would you give me like marketing tools on how to best market myself to that population to get
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. If that's where you want to focus, it makes my life so much easier because I can give you a direction. I have a point of reference to help guide you. I'm not going to send you out. If you really want to work with first responders, there are clear pathways to doing that. There are other services. You can have partnerships that you can develop within your community and within your county to serving those individuals and being a referral base. This it goes with that goes to say that is available for all populations and for all demographics. So the clearer you are about who you serve and what type of therapist, what type of modality you want to work in, the easier it's going to be for you because you have a clear line of tasks ahead of you.
Excellent. Excellent. And one more thing too. On your site, you mentioned something called the T zone. Could you elaborate on what the T zone means?
Oh, yeah. So I came up with this mashup word of becoming a therapreneur. So that is the combination of being a therapist or the having the heart of an in-service professional and marrying it with the savviness of an entrepreneur. So when I think of that T zone, I think of the therapy zone that you're in of where you have a clear picture of who you are as a clinician, you have a clear picture of the people or population you want to serve, and you have the systems in place to make a go of it. And so it's like this Venn diagram or a triad of focus, a bullseye that you can aim towards, a North Star orientation for your life and your business.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, again, Amity, thank you so much for being on the show. And just before we wrap things up, I love asking goal-oriented questions. Um, let's say you and your career in the next 5 years, what do you hope to accomplish as a goal? Like, do you have a new program you're working on, a book perhaps? Any new ideas?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking. I'm really excited to share that I'm working on writing a book and it's all about and my diagram, my Venn diagram is I love talking about entrepreneurship. I love talking about the mental health space and all of these new technologies that are coming out and changing the landscape of our industry. And so I'm writing about that. And then I also clinically I'm a trained equine therapist, and so I have a 40-acre ranch property here in Denver, Colorado, and I'm setting up a guest ranch. So I'll be able to run retreats and programs and services for all sorts of people to come out and experience horses in nature.
That is beautiful, awesome, and I totally support you in that. If you ever need my help marketing, just let me know.
Oh, that'd be great. All right. We'll talk about it.
Well, again, Amity, thank you so much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it. And also, if any of my audience members do want to get a hold of you, is there like an email or website they could use to contact you?
Yeah, so I have a couple of things that you can do to reach out to me. As you mentioned earlier, my clinical career collective. I know that is a mouthful, but it's clinicalcareercollective.com. And then my namesake website at amitycooper.com. Feel free, all of my programs and offerings, and you can find me there. So either of those two websites would be great.
And to my audience members, I will put all that information in the show notes, so it will be one click away.
Great. Great. Thank you so much for having me today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
My great pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show. I just want to thank all of my listeners for your support, and just to inform everyone that the information expressed in this episode was not meant to be taken as therapeutic advice. If you do find yourself struggling with any type of mental health or addiction issues, please seek the care of a medical doctor or a licensed mental health therapist. And if anyone has any further questions for me, you can reach me at my email address, behaviorhealthintegration121@gmail.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Jacob Minig, where you will find more educational posts on psychotherapy, trauma, and addiction. And finally, you can follow me on my website, which is behaviorhealthintegration.org. I also want to inform everyone that there is a great new device out there called Camigo. It's a breathing device meant to control and manage your breathing rates and the depth of your breathing as you inhale and exhale to, again, help relieve any type of anxiety and stress-like symptoms. And if you do put the BHI podcast into the promo code, you get $30 off this amazing device. It is a once-in-a-lifetime deal, and you will not be disappointed. All right, everyone, until next time, have a good day. Bye.